Hello and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level, especially this topic tonight. To interact with us, we love seeing you live every Thursday night, Facebook and YouTube land. Hello and good evening. The chats are always fun, and remember, your chats may show up in the show. And if you cannot catch us live, that's what I was trying to say, always catch us in the replay or in your favorite podcasting app. My name is John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. Next up for his introduction, Joe Martinez. Hello and good evening.
Hello and good evening. Joe Martinez. Let's see. I'm past master of Manassas Lodge, number 182 in Manassas, Virginia, a member of Things and Stuff, and currently the assistant secretary.
Assistant to the secretary.
Assistant to the regional secretary. Correct.
Sweet.
Hello.
Woo.
Hello.
Welcome. And last but not least for tonight, the one, the only, Robert Johnson.
Cheers. Happy Motu Day.
Yes.
That's right.
Motu. Is that an independent body? What is Motu?
Yeah. That's the Masters of the Universe. We got the full trailer today. So I only watched it 400 or 500 times. So.
Nice hat.
Yeah, representing. Got my vintage patch iron-on from the 80s that I threw on a Masonic hat when the cheap iron-on thing came off of the square and compass. I put my master. I have another one. It's Beast Man, but I haven't put it on anything yet. Anyway,
Nice.
The Shaw.
Awesome.
Love it.
Super cool. All right. Well, welcome. This should be a fun topic tonight. But before we do, let's pay some bills. I want to give a special shout out to the patrons who support the show. We love you. So thank you. We are almost to 12 years of the Masonic Roundtable. Yeah.
You old.
It's been a while.
Yeah. You had hair.
Yeah, I did.
It was nice.
I parted it on the side.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we love you guys. Thank you so much. Patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable if you want to support the show. Let's get past 2040. That's the big plan.
Boom.
In other news, we do have a big announcement.
Ooh.
Everyone's favorite esoteric conference is back, is better than ever. That's right. Esotericon, the Mid-Atlantic Esotericon Conference, is here, ready to blow your minds again this summer. So this is Esotericon 2026. Joe, you want to fill us in on all the details?
Yeah, Esotericon 2026. I love that you called it Mid-Atlantic. We haven't called it that in like 7 years. But yeah, I think this is number 6 or 7. We did take a year off last year, but yeah, this year we are going with a Rosicrucian theme. So you're going to see some friends new and old, some familiar faces. Pretty good chance you will see all 4 of us at this event, and some new surprises as well. And it's June 20th in Manassas, Virginia, as it always has been. And tickets went on sale a couple of days ago. So, and they are already racking up. So yeah, we'll start announcing speakers this weekend and hopefully have them all out in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I'm super jazzed to see everybody in June for Esotericon.
Head over to esotericon.net to get your tickets now. Early bird tickets. I'm excited. Yeah. We have a good lineup already, so stay tuned to the Facebook page for all the little drops of new speakers coming out. It's going to be a good time.
And RJ's decided that we'll have since it'll be out, we'll have a Masters of the Universe. We'll go to the movies. So if you want to do esoteric stuff, and then we'll spend the night at the movies with Robert Johnson, we'll make that a thing.
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah,
we gotta steer clear of that giant pizza that we had last year.
Those were humongous.
That is so happening.
I mean, listen, was delicious. I ate too much.
There's never a bad pizza.
It is my favorite meal. Let's do it.
Indeed.
Awesome. Since you have the power, Robert.
I do. Yeah.
Shift us over to the tarot card of the week. Right? That'll be.
What, no song?
We're going to get the.
Oh, yeah.
Tarot card of the week.
I'm just gonna tell you, I did an absinthe rinse on my cocktail before I did this, and it's so good. Anyway, for tonight's tarot card of the week, I thought let's use a tarot deck that is well, I think maybe one of the best tarot decks for tonight's show. Jason premiered it maybe a little over a year ago. Recently, US Games had this deck on sale, and I had to pick it up because it's awesome. The Neo-Colonial Tarot.
Neo-Colonial, interesting.
Yeah, published by US Game Systems, and in fact, it's only twice removed. We know the guy behind this, like twice removed. I think he's somebody that actually wants a Pulvita knows. But anyway, I'll go ahead and pick a card, but I'll shuffle it. Hold on. These are brand new, and I feel like bending them. So,
segment has its own acronym now. TCOTW.
Oh, dude, yeah, for sure.
I like it.
And let's go
with, of course, a loco.
Oh, how divine.
The Fool.
And loco.
The Fool. Freedom. Yeah, I like that. Or, you know, the freedom to do stuff, to be a kid, to wander, to have childlike wisdom.
To travel.
Mm-hmm.
Beginnings of a new journey.
Yeah. And then, you know, of course, look at that. Ah, man.
Nice pick.
I think I also would have accepted a Queen of Wands, kind of like a freedom sort of independent spirit. Or maybe John's favorite card, the Tower. You know, it's like sudden liberation through chaos.
Through immediate chaos. Yes.
Yes. Could be good.
That is true. We haven't seen the Tower in a while. Let's keep it that way.
Indeed. Indeed.
I'm secretly going into your houses and removing all the Tower cards.
I swear to God, the second, I mean, I know it's out there, but I am going to buy you an Oops All
Towers.
Oops All Towers.
I do not have that deck, so I will be
78
surprised.
Classic renditions of the Tower.
Yes.
I do not have that deck on purpose, so guaranteed that I will not have it if you decide to get that for me. Okay. All right.
We will see.
Tonight's topics will be a spicy one with everything that's going on in the world today and in recent administrations. We thought we'd gently and brotherly address the role of Freemasonry as regards to immigration. Right? Is there any sort of restrictions on one's immigration status? When we travel to foreign countries, what should we do as Freemasons? And what should we do as brothers across the world regarding people's status in and out, traveling through all the areas of the world? So this will be a fun topic to address a variety of things. We'll try to stay away from politics, but we might get right to the line, so we'll see what happens. We'll dance right on that razor's edge.
Yeah, and I think that's important you said that, John. I mean, because tonight we're not going to debate policy. We're not going to debate politics. We're here to talk about immigration, which has existed long before 2025 and 2026, through the lens of the things we learn and do as Masons, right? How we think, how we treat one another, and how we conduct ourselves as Masons. And I think you kind of hit it on the head. Like, one of our charges is to travel. So for those that actually get to do that, they get to experience Masonry in other places in the world and are impacted by those experiences, and I think that a lot of times we forget that because we know a lot of brothers who, because of reason, because of circumstance, because of desire, they don't do any traveling. They don't even go down to the lodge next door.
Right.
They've gone to the same lodge for 25 years. They don't know what another lodge looks like. So all they know is their little corner of the world.
Exactly. Yep. So this is not a pipe says that we are brave for this one, but I think also to even introduce this topic should also be a way to say, hey, look, we can talk about these things without it being a crap show, right? We can address this concept brotherly and academically without having it fall apart into politics and all that. So hopefully showing the way and being the change.
Love that. Love that.
All right, so let's start administratively for the modern system of Freemasonry as it exists in the United States. Different jurisdictions have different residency rules to even apply to be a Freemason. And so let's just start like at the surface level before we go into the more symbolic things about traveling. Just surface level, if I want to travel between jurisdictions or if I want to even join Freemasonry in a jurisdiction, do I have restrictions, constraints, or any other things I should be aware of to apply for membership? Where do you want to start?
We can start with simple things like at least Virginia's requirements. I can tell you about Illinois requirements.
So let's go that. Robert, what's Illinois' requirements?
The requirements in the state of Illinois are fairly straightforward. And that is that the Grand Lodge of Illinois does not have any specific policy or statement on what we would call or term modern immigration topics. Our membership rules simply emphasize universality without distinction of race or color, prioritizing the moral, mental, and physical qualifications. And the only other qualifications we have are that your petition needs to be submitted, and with that petition, the requirement that you have resided within the state, right? Not even like a citizen requirement or anything, resided in the state for the last 6 months past. And then it'll ask you where you resided before for up to like the last 10 years. And further, it will say that like perhaps you haven't resided in the state the last 6 months past. That's the verbiage they use. Then in such an instance, they might ask you about it. And if need be, sometimes you're not even a resident of the state, in which case you would need something called a waiver of jurisdiction. So for instance,
when would you use that?
You would use a waiver of jurisdiction. We have a couple of members who live in Indiana who come to Space Novum. So it's about hour and a half drive. And we have some brothers who live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's another hour or so drive. Because of that, they live in those states and they need a waiver of jurisdiction so that we can bring them in. Now, granted, this might be a little easier if they're already Masons in their home states. Now they're just pluraling up at another lodge, perhaps. But in some cases, if you're not a Mason at all, you might just have to get a waiver of jurisdiction, which is a little more scrutinized if you're just getting the degrees started. So that's kind of how it works here in Illinois.
All right, Joe, how about Virginia?
And
I actually have the petition up here on the screen.
Yeah, so it's pretty. So it's pretty straightforward. It's very similar to what Robert described, but you have your basic requirements to join a lodge. You know, do you believe in a supreme being? Are you a man? Are you a certain age? Now it's 18. But then we have a residency requirement where all it asks is, have you resided in the Commonwealth for the last 12 months? So the very last 12 months, have you lived in Virginia?
The most recent 12 months.
Yep,
is that consecutively?
It is consecutively, yes. In fact, we've had quite a few folks who live in Maryland or lived in Maryland up until a few months ago. We had someone petition who only lived in Virginia for 9 months. And, you know, we asked for, we have a dispensation process, kind of similar to what Robert was talking about. And the reply was he had to wait a year. So he came back in 3 months. and petition. So
Okay.
yeah, so they're pretty strict about the having lived the last 12 months in Virginia. I think the only folks that I've seen get waivers or dispensations are folks in the military who are
Makes
stationed
sense.
in Virginia.
Mhm.
Yeah, because they're sometimes here for a finite time. But that's it. That is really the only requirement when it comes to being a resident.
Yeah, you
of-
notice there is no citizenship question asked on the petition.
well, I looked at other petitions for other jurisdictions where I'm a member of, and they have different requirements. DC, North Carolina, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
None of them that I've seen have a citizenship requirement. Like
Right.
what country are you a citizen of? I mean, it asks you where you were born and things like that. But I just look at my mother lodge here in Manassas. We have folks that are from all over the place.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, Northern Virginia is a melting pot too, so there's
It
that.
is. Yeah.
There's that. Um, Now, an interesting, so that's explicitly no. Citizenship is not an issue for most jurisdictions, but I will say there might be some unintended secondary effects when you think of things like social security number, right? That is still on the Virginia form. I think didn't something just pass at Grand Lodge where they were going to either take this off or like not have it as a required field or something. I couldn't remember
That
what came
is,
out of that.
I think you have an old petition there. Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. So they did remove, the social security number, at least to go on the petition. Well, you still
On the
have,
petition itself. However,
you still have to do a background check, which is now a third party process completely. So the lodge is not involved at all in that process. It's between the candidate and the background check company. So they may ask other information. I've not taken the background check here in Virginia. So so I'm sure there are other requirements for people to identify themselves, but
right.
it's not on our petition.
Right. So potentially not knowing this black box of how the background check process goes, there might be something that comes up, and then it's left to the lodge and the candidates to adjudicate whatever comes up in those findings. And I've seen things happen all the time, and 9 times out of 9, the lodge is like, okay, you're upfront about it. We understand, and you're good to go, right? So
yeah, it is interesting to note some of these changes on petitions. I mean, I think we had an episode way back on differences of petitions, but they do evolve over time, and Grand Lodges specifically are.
Wouldn't that be an interesting research paper?
Yeah, to see like how the process of the petition has changed over time. I've mentioned on more than one occasion the petition in the state of Illinois is not specifically standardized that any particular lodge has to use the Grand Lodge's petition. They are sort of free to create their own, and in some cases the petition is a little bit more stringent. In particular, in times of past where lodges had required a background check. And then further, where I'm going with this is, I went to the Illinois Masonic website today, and I was really surprised, actually. Something that appeared there on ilmason.org, if you go there and you click on Join Us, and you scroll down to the qualifications, it says to become a Freemason and remain a member, you are expected to demonstrate good character and reputation. You must also meet the following criteria to join: be a male, be at least 18, be an Illinois resident for at least 6 months, be prepared to profess a belief in God or a supreme being, be of good reputation as a man of honor and integrity. And this is not codified at all in our Constitution yet, but it does say complete a criminal background check as one of the component membership evaluation processes. This is not mandated by the Grand Lodge at all, but yet it is on here, and it says you should be, I expected to demonstrate. You must also meet the following criteria. You might want to change that to be prepared to meet the following criteria. But I think that is interesting. And again, to tie this back to what's interesting here is with what's going on in the country, Freemasonry is not immune to sort of adapting its practice to the needs of the society in which the society it serves. And we've seen interesting additions to petitions in the last couple of years with the advent of transgender issues, for instance. And now with the hot button of immigration, I wonder, will we see something? I would hope not.
Right.
In the 300 years that Masonry has been around, it has absolutely been, especially in these United States, Freemasonry has been a friend and a brother to the immigrant.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's one other potentially unintended consequence too, aside from the administrative part of the petition, the background check, that kind of thing. There is another step for when you join Masonry about the investigating committee. Right, because they have to return a favorable report that they've met you in addition to your signers of your petition, some other brothers of the lodge to just check you out, answer any questions, and give hopefully an unbiased opinion. However, there could be, a reason for brothers that would, throughout history, there's been lots of brothers who've given unfavorable reports that are really not administratively Masonic, but yet, yes, the administrative committee could or will make or break that lodge, as Densmore says. So that could be an area to be concerned about if you're trying to think about, is that a bias of the investigating committee?
Well, I mean, I'm going to answer your question with a question. I've been on quite a few investigative committees, both as the main person speaking and as, one of the sideline dudes just asking questions. But I can't think of a single time where we asked the question, we walked in and said, "Hey, are you a citizen?" That's never come up one single time in any investigation I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to agree. I've never seen.
That's good.
I've never seen an investigation move that way. I have seen apprehension of lodge members in a lodge. I am a legit member, honorary and paid member of half a dozen lodges, so you'll never know. But in a lodge that I had gone to, I was at an election of officers in a November meeting, and I did witness apprehension of members to elect the worshipful master, to elect the member to a worshipful master position based on his immigration status.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm concerned about, right? As a potential downfall.
Yes. And in the end, I will say Freemasonry prevailed in that a past Grand Master had just happened to be in that lodge that night and stood up and said, "That doesn't matter here." And the vote was just fine. So I was like, raise the roof. Yeah. So.
Well, there you go.
Well, I mean, regardless, I know we talked about people coming into Masonry like that. It nowhere in Freemasonry does it tell us what a stance on immigration should be, right? It doesn't talk about it. It doesn't discuss it. It, in fact, does the opposite, right? It tells us how we as Masons should behave, all over the place, no matter who we're interacting with, and we should treat people with civility, respect, compassion, and conscience, and those are what our lessons teach us. So I find it interesting that some of the political stuff does start to creep in, but as our favorite co-host likes to say, remember your oaths, and do you live this stuff, or do you just talk about it once a month, right? And
right.
Well, one of the things that I think is paramount, and I think we've all danced around this in many episodes, is that we sort of joke about the continuous turning wheel that is Freemasonry and American history. And yeah, George Washington was a Mason. But like, it's really interesting because you'll find that certain demographic of people that really get gung-ho about that, it feels sort of like you want to correct in the air, whisper wise counsel in the ear of an erring brother. When I sort of see those types of things being said, and then seeing a sort of stance that they might have about immigration, or having these reservations of perhaps a man who has not completed his civic duty and joined the country, right, and taken his pledge of oath and become a citizen. But the reality is that from the 1700s on this continent, Freemasonry aided colonists, immigrants with both lodging and business networking, and even relief funds, especially like sending aid to brothers, all around, regardless of their citizen status. And in the 1800s, you had German, Italian, and French immigrants that were forming, like, you might have heard rumors that in your state there was a German lodge that did everything in German, or a French lodge, or whatever the case is. And that's because those immigrants formed language specific lodges in cities like New York, Chicago, and things like that to ease cultural transitions, that assisted in building, like, these supportive ethnic communities, where then those brothers that became, brothers that were immigrants could then help additionally by giving back to those same communities that those lodges were in. And this is largely something that we don't do anymore. Right. And I'm not talking about immigration stuff, but I'm talking about, like, the lodge in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the best success stories and the romanticized stories about lodges that are in their communities are those immigrant lodges. So it's really an interesting thing to look at.
That's fair. I want to give a special shout out to Brother Courtney.
Thank you, Brother Courtney.
Thanks for the love.
You're the man.
Nice.
Always good seeing you on here.
John, I've been reading this one comment over and over and over again, and would love for you to pull it up, because I can't tell whether it's the one from Invisible Nobody. Yes, that one. Thank you. So Invisible Nobody 1313 says, what about honoring the laws of the nation? Right. And I think that is a great talking point. I can't tell, because I'm reading text, if it's meant to stir the pot, or if it's genuine.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that too. I was thinking about the other, like, because I always put on my, like, black hat and think about how can I get around the rules, right? And another rule that we're charged with, is to be a lawful and peaceful citizen, right? Which thereby implies honoring the laws of the nation in which you reside. And so, spoiler alert, really good book. I've read it. I picked it up off and on. Haven't really ever finished it. It's called like 3 felonies a day, which basically says the average person living in America will commit about 3 felonies a day because of all of the complications of the U.S. code and the state code in which you live. And so it's almost impossible not to break the law in some way, shape, or form, right? Obviously, to varying degrees, but yeah, that means we should also look down upon our fellow brother Freemasons for speeding 5 miles over the speed limit, right? I mean, it is a point to be made that we should internally hold ourselves up to a higher standard and follow the laws in where we reside, and understand that we are all humans as well.
I do think that is interesting, right? Like in the Scottish Rite, for instance, Scottish Rite has a heavy political bent to it. Not that the organization itself is political, but that it does sort of induce a sense of civic duty within the member. And this is a concept that is throughout all of the degrees, whether you live in the northern jurisdiction or the southern jurisdiction. You can find these sort of breadcrumbs that are in it. And one thing that I find fascinating is that, yes, we have the charge, right, which tells us that we're to be a peaceable citizen and to obey the laws under whose protection we live, and to never lose sight of the allegiance that you owe to your country, right? And within all of this, I think that we should understand where that comes from, and that it might be lesser than an obligation.
Right. A charge rather than an obligation.
Exactly. But in another charge, let's say in the Scottish Rite, something that comes up is that we should obey the dictates of one's own conscience. And I find that a huge part of sort of navigating the pitfalls of something you were talking about, John. The average person might commit 3 felonies a day. But here's the thing, is that in the classical sense of the word, I guess I would just mean this in the modern sense, in the liberal or the libertine sense of the word, might mean that what laws are just and what laws are there to collect money from citizens, right? So like the libertarian side of like, you're you and I'm me, and I'm in charge of me speeding and not wearing my seatbelt, right? But yeah. So like, where do you stand? Where do you stand when it says something like that? And then are we supposed to like pay attention to citizenship rules and things? I mean, they've never been baked into Masonry, so
Yeah, and it's like, is that a duty
Mhm.
of a Mason to to enforce the law, basically, right? So to go around doing
Making
citizens
a
arrests
citizen's arrest.
to all of your brothers. You're like, you didn't put your blinker on.
Yeah.
That'll get you beat up in Manassas.
Our brother Brian Maddox, he asked political stuff like the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah, I was going to get there for a second. So that's a good segue.
It is. It's a good one.
Because that's something that Jason and I have talked about quite a bit as well. I'm going to preface that conversation with the next, like, now we're getting past the administrative and into the symbolic, right? Freemasonry is meant to be a universal brotherhood, right? So we have that as a common thing. That's why we have brothers literally around the world. So Freemasonry really doesn't have borders for that. Beyond all the amount of recognition that happens between jurisdictions, Grand Lodges, it is meant to be a universal brotherhood. We've been to the moon, right? We've been around the globe. That's the intent of a global fraternity, not just a hyper-local fraternity to your area.
Well, and it's not, something like the Pledge and Lodge is not an exclusive, or that concept is not exclusively an American-only concept, right? I've been to lodges in Canada, and they do their whatever their
God Save the King and everything. Yeah,
God Save the King, absolutely. You go to the UK, same thing. So I mean, I think again, I don't think that's a hot button issue, right? When we recite the Pledge of Allegiance in Lodge, I think we're acknowledging the civil authority, and we're acknowledging the framework that protects us as Masons and gives us our right to meet, to speak freely as brothers, and to.
This is where I disagree with Joe for once.
Oh, okay. Right.
You usually disagree with me. But yeah, I think.
Well, you go ahead and tell me why you disagree, and then I'll finish my thought later. But
yeah, because it's no longer valid. No, I really think that the pledge of allegiance to any country that you're a lodge of is really not. it's not the best sense of decorum for what Masonry is meant to be as a universal fraternity. In other words, even if, and we, words mean things, and so when we say the pledge in Virginia, we say, all citizens of the United States will join the worshipful master in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Therefore, it's not forcing anyone to say the pledge if they're not a member or a citizen of this country, but the mere fact of, and now you have the separation, because now, well, if I'm not a member, if I'm not a citizen, now I'm going to feel weird because I'm the guy that's not, saying along to the pledge, and everyone's looking at me, and I feel awkward. You've automatically created a divisive thing. When you're in lodge, the whole point of lodge is to bring brothers together and to unify, not divide. So, therefore, and I can't remember where I saw this, but I saw this years ago, that, what are the things you're not supposed to talk about in lodge? Politics and religion. And there was a third one, and it was borders. And I can't remember where I found it. I read it with my own eyes, so one of you guys needs to find that source for me. And man, I wish we could bring that back, because borders separate men. Whether it's explicit, like the borders of a country, or implicit as like, hey, my Baltimore Ravens are better than your Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Even that divides men, right? So that, even at a surface level joking, hey, sports ball and all that. But you see where I'm going is that the mere fact that we are talking about a difference of region is implying something different than the universality of what we're trying to accomplish as a fraternity. So I'm all for getting rid of the pledge as part of the ritual of the lodge.
Well, hold up a second. Let me finish my point and then disagree with you further. No, yes, we are.
Sorry, your mic's breaking up.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive to your house, and we'll talk about it later. No, I think I do see your point, but again, it's not an exclusively American concept, right? Number one,
sure,
it happens everywhere, right?
Exactly.
And
I would be consistent.
God,
on that approach.
Good, be quiet. I don't think that idea. Well, first of all, it's not ritual, right? Because at least in Virginia, it is not part of the ritualistic opening, right? It happens after. So those that argue that it is ritual, we can fine line it, and the book will say you are wrong. But in general, this concept of the pledge or God Save the King,
why do you think they put it outside of the ritual?
To your point, first time I was in lodge in Canada, I did not know the words to God Save the King. So yes, I felt excluded. I was like, that's a snappy song. I don't know it. Would I sing it? Maybe, but
it's not Celine Dion. You won't know it.
It's not. You know me. But I think I totally listen to Celine Dion. My wife,
I know you do.
Yeah, I rock it. She's an icon. Anyway, I don't think that those things negate the universality of the craft, and I don't think that they diminish the dignity of those who came and visited from elsewhere, right? Because Masonry, at the end of the day, does not get practiced. You don't do Masonry in Grand Lodge. You do Masonry in the local lodge that you go attend and visit, right? Or that's where you get together and do it. I think that it reminds us that while Masonry is universal, it is practiced locally, and it's practiced in part by the laws and customs of a place where we're allowed to practice that. And my counterpoint to that is go to Afghanistan. Masonry is not allowed to be practiced there, right? No matter what your feelings are on whether you can say the pledge or not. There are other parts of the world that Masonry is verboten in, So I think as an acknowledgement of having the right to practice as a Freemason, it does. If we're talking about the Pledge of Allegiance as a ultra patriotic stance on, uber politicizing it, then yeah, I would agree with you, but I don't think that's the intent of it, or at least I don't think so. Now, there could be guys in lodge with me that are hardliners and are saying the Pledge of Allegiance, instead of prayers when they go to bed at night, and that's probably a thing, but that's not how I view it. I don't think it negates our universality. I think it shows deference to the place or country or land where you are allowed to practice it, and practice it freely.
I think that's
now that you finished that thought, well, I want to hear what Robert has to say.
It's a great point, and I think there we go. I love you, Joe, even if you're wrong about this pledge.
Love you more.
I love
Celine
you,
says.
Joe. Okay. I think both of you have great points, and I think where the issue lies is that it is often said that the Grand Lodge is the sole interpreter of the code, the bylaws, and is the final say in all things ritual. Or maybe you have a board of grand examiners, let's say, like we have in Illinois. The chairman is the final word on the ritual. Now, if the Grand Lodge is well known to say we control what is done between the gavels, and the pledge falls in there, and it's part of our official visit, opening, and closing ritual, this is where I think the confusion can come in. But I also see this. I mean, I've been to meetings where I've had a couple of German guys who came to our lodge once and did not say the pledge, and afterward felt a need to explain it. They said the reason why is because I'm a German citizen. I can't say the pledge of the United States. I won't.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And everybody was totally chill with that.
Right.
I wish that they, in the perfect world, they should never have had to explain themselves, but I think they felt eyes, and they felt a need to do it to sort of dissolve maybe thoughts or apprehensions or like, what's that? What are those guys about? Kind of thoughts of my, the lodge I was in. So I see it both ways. I have no problem with the pledge at all. I do wish that we would just do it before the opening of a lodge.
Right.
And even Grand Lodge could be like, hey, we don't control outside the gavels, but we would really like it if you just did the pledge. Or if they just said, hey, if you want to, you can move the pledge to before. I know I've been to lodges in heavy cosmopolitan areas where they don't do the pledge in lodge because of the amount of multiple different cultures that come down on that lodge.
Yeah. And it's not a disrespect for the pledge at all.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, that's not the intent. Right. Mm-hmm. I'll unmute your mic, Joe.
Did you mute me? That's a one and done thing. While we're getting spicy, I was reading Jimmy's message about closing a prayer. Yes, I love that. So Stoic Mason 1, cool name, bro, says, that sounded very political. If the pledge is okay based on the borders of the lodge, then would it be okay to close a prayer in open lodge in Jesus's name because it is a predominantly Christian area? First of all, that brother knows better. The answer is, so I know
he's just trying to poke the elephant.
He said, that's fine. And in Marcus Aurelius' name.
And we're going to see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll talk face to face with smooches. No, but I think that's a great. To be fair, I'm sure there are two that would conflate that as the same argument, and I know this brother is not, and I totally get that. But I think, just to separate that out, because there are people that think like that. I think,
sure,
shut up. All right, we know you're the devil's advocate. I think closing a prayer in Jesus's name is not a cultural, it's not a geographic, and it's definitely not a political thing. It is doctrinal, right? Okay, so now we're talking about inserting doctrine into our Freemasonry, right? It places the lodge or what happens in the lodge within one specific religious tradition.
I'll pull that thread, right? I'll be an advocate for the devil's advocate.
I wasn't done.
God, you talk so long.
What I was going to say, I'm trying to be very intentional, and I'm going to beat you up later. I swear to God. The Pledge of Allegiance, again, going back to my earlier point, I think for many, it acknowledges where we are assembled, right? A sectarian prayer, however, defines who belongs and who doesn't belong, right? And I think that we're very careful in our Masonry not to conflate the two and to not do the latter, depending on where you go. I've absolutely walked into lodges where they end prayers in Jesus's name, and you see heads turning all over the place. But as a visitor, I'm not going to start a, rabble rousing. So now, John, you may speak and disagree with me.
I disagree. No. I have another hypothetical situation. Let's just go to the extreme example, right?
I'm gonna take high blood pressure medication tonight.
If in Virginia, the flag ceremony is outside of the official ritual, but strongly encouraged and is part of tradition, let's use that same example I used earlier about if we keep borders out of lodge. Well, what's preventing again from a lodge having a culture of all Baltimore Ravens fans? And they watch the game, when they watch the replay right before lodge, right? And they got Ravens gear all over the wall, and it's like a sports bar in the social hall, but then it's Masonry, between the gavel wraps. Is that not outside of ritual, but yet a border issue that is like conflicting, making people feel uncomfortable if they're not part of that external culture of celebrating one border over another?
No.
Okay, there you go.
Boom,
it's a crazy example, but hopefully you can see where I was going.
Well, and here's why it is no, because the Baltimore Ravens did not give you the freedom to assemble and attend and even have a lodge, right? You do not have the right to build a lodge building, have members come in and join, pay dues, attend, have really crappy dinners, maybe have a 10-minute education program, and then go home disappointed, right? The Baltimore Ravens do not give you the right to do that.
They leave me disappointed in other ways. That's true.
Right, exactly.
I just was thinking about affinity lodges when you were talking about this.
Right.
And Joe comes up with,
I was going to say yes, too, because there are, very...
Joe had actually like a cogent response. I was just like, that sounds like affinity.
Robert, you interrupted Joe. He was talking. So.
Oh, shit, sorry.
Wow. Did you guys make a pact like Jason wasn't going to be on today? So it's like, I'm going to push Joe's buttons until he has to take statins before he goes to bed at night. Is that what it is?
Oh, goody.
Gourmet green beans. Almondine. All right, Berkey.
Almondine or casserole. All good choices.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right. So, what should we as Masons do? Since we're getting into the home stretch here.
Something that I'm going to disagree with, and then we'll get into that too.
Okay. Yeah. So we've talked so far about administratively how it operates today. Is citizenship required to join? The answer is no. There are other things to consider, but really, if that is not an explicit or implicit characteristic defining what makes a good man to join Masonry in most jurisdictions. Then we talked about universality of the craft, the pledge and lodge, religion, politics, and borders, ? I never got my answer, but I'm ready to bring that back, and let's not talk about borders anymore. So then how do we take this forward? How do we go beyond, and what can we do as a civic duty to live the tenets of the fraternity as we go out into the world, do good unto all, and make sure that we represent ourselves, the craft, and all the morals that we teach into the world and the political environment that we live in today?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of answered the question in the question itself, right? Because we have to talk about this concept of brotherhood, and we have to talk about the concept of politics, right? And politics, by design, divides, right? It puts you on a certain part of the line on a particular issue. Freemasonry, the exact opposite, unites by obligation. Okay, and that's the big difference between the two, right? So if something like this concept of immigration can break our harmony, then we've allowed all the things that we did not teach in lodge to enter into lodge, right? And people are going to do it. Listen, it happens. Everybody here is human. I'm not the world's best Mason. You guys are close, but not there yet. So I think remembering that all the things that we learned and all the sweat and time and energy we've invested into it, if we remember that the sole purpose of it is to unite instead of divide, then we can do things that remind us of our obligations. We can listen more than worry about correcting or persuading. We can seek understanding over agreement or over involvement. And we can remember that things like peace and harmony, they're Masonic labor, and labor is work. It's not called Masonic fun. It's called Masonic labor, right? And it takes work. I sure as hell am not perfect. John loves to point out how not perfect I am, and that's okay. But, but I think if we always come from the framework of we are here to unite men, it should be okay. I think the problem is that the outside world and our own personal humanities tend to get in the way of that, right? Of not listening to that voice that we all agree on, that says to seek harmony and not discord, because we're human. I'm waiting for John to yell at me.
I actually agree with you.
Oh.
Yeah, so we as Freemasons are taught to meet everyone on the level. Meet everyone on the level. Let me say that again. On the lever. Pull the lever, move the trolley, and do good unto all. So that's important. That's what it's all about. Also, we focus on the internal, not the external characteristics of a man. And so the external would be where they were born, where they live, all that kind of stuff. That's not what's in their heart. And that's, again, the tie that binds really should be focused around the internal qualifications of a man. Plain and simple.
Boom, you solved it. Now onto world hunger. Go.
Okay, so here's what you're going to do. You're going to have these robots, right? And they're going to farm 24/7.
Soylent Green
is people.
Ah.
I prefer Soylent Yellow myself. Rich Soylent Yellow.
It's got an aftertaste.
Lemon flavored.
And of course, be the change.
Be the change.
Somebody's been listening to, people who don't know, like if you listen to the podcast and I do the post-production on it, after the end of the show, you should hang out for a minute. There's some hijinks that go on. Anyway.
Awesome.
I wanted Robert. I just wanted to say that I think you guys covered this beautifully, and this was something, it was timely, it was a good discussion topic. And there's only so much you can research on this type of a topic because it's not really covered in Masonry other than to say what the qualifications are for joining. And they really don't touch on this topic. But in the ancient charges, right, there's something that says, there's a note that says of all nations, tongues, kindred, and languages, so that it's sort of from the get-go is all encompassing. It's saying like this is Masonry knows no borders, right? And I think that's one of the most great things about it. Right. It unites men who would have otherwise remained at a perpetual distance. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure everybody listening to this show has a brother in another country, because you're on the interwebs. You probably know somebody in a different country and you're like, tight. So that's cool.
It's amazing. Yep. It is a great fraternity. Let's keep it that way. Any final thoughts, Joe, Robert, before we bring it home?
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely a heady topic, and I love how you framed it, John. I love that we got through some stuff which I think was relevant, and not just glad-handed. But I think tonight's conversation reminds us that something like immigration, right, and its prevalence out in the world today, like many of the issues in the world beyond the walls of Freemasonry, is complicated. And Masonry does not exist to polarize those conversations and make you choose a side, right? We're taught to respect and honor the laws of the land, as much as John hates that, because things like peace and harmony matter, right? It's part of our duty as a good citizen, as RJ put it. We're also taught in that very same vein, right after we do the Pledge of Allegiance, we're taught to act with temperance, to provide relief. It doesn't say relief to citizens, it says relief to everybody, right? And to show compassion towards individuals, because every person is more than a label, than a political party, or the circumstances and how they live, right? And Masonry asks us to hold all of these truths together at the same time. They're not dichotomous. To honor the laws of the land without losing the compassion that makes you a Mason, right? To speak firmly when required, or to stand up firmly when you're required, but always do it with humility and compassion, right? And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me, is that these things can't polarize us as human beings, and they sure as hell can't polarize us as Masons.
I couldn't have said it better.
But you probably could.
Okay, I'll take that back. I probably could. Thanks. Hey, you guys are awesome, especially in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Jimmy, thank you so much. Brother Courtney, back again. You guys are great.
Thank you.
We love you guys. We love seeing you every week. And you guys are awesome. We love seeing everyone every week. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for watching. And keep searching for more light. Have a good night.
Be the change.